welcome to our 14th episode of Tomorrow Talk. That is quite a bit of achievement for us, so that's awesome. Today I have Geller with us, as well as Cersei. Geller plays in our Daggerheart campaign that we hosted just last Sunday. And then Cersei plays in both of our Daggerheart campaign and in our new Star Wars campaign that we're launching session 0 for tomorrow using SW5E, and that's why that's actually up on our stream today. But I figured since we have Geller here with us, we can start with the Daggerheart stuff. I'll let Cersei go ahead and take over on that point, see where we want to start with, our chill conversation, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, hello everyone. We are happy to have you here as our audience as we resume our Tomorrow Talks. So with that in mind, we had our Daggerheart episode last weekend. And with that we saw the group returning back from the, would you call it a cavern or a ruins? What's that called, Nahili?
It was part of a underground catacombs that led into a cavern. It blended in with the cavern and then moved into a cave.
Okay, so catacombs. They were leaving the catacombs after everything that had happened prior with the sisterhood and Geller deciding he was gonna, take them all out and and
sure,
take everything with him.
That's exactly what it was.
He was like,
no misrepresentation here.
Scorched earth. for people who've watched the Boys series, you know what that means. But that was basically seemed to be what had happened prior, and then the group was heading back with a lot of unresolved conversations, which I would say, if I had to pick a new episode title, I would call it Unresolved Conversations, because it feels like there was a lot of that going on throughout. But to kind of pinpoint on Geller, how did you feel, immediately after everything in the catacombs, and then Geller being with the group, after everything had happened? Like, what's going through Geller's head, or what's your thoughts as you're moving through this, this first scenes after that?
So there's a lot going on with Geller right now internally, and it's coming from different directions. So he's sort of, the main thing is he feels all alone in the world right now. And seeing how Raiden was the only one who backed him up, at least someone did, it really put him in a place to where he feels like, oh, it's just me. Like I'm the only one who matters here to me, so I guess I should just leave. It's kind of his mindset, and he's really been battling with that throughout the whole of last session.
Yeah. And I think that's very relatable. A relatable feeling for Geller. Really, I think after that, after everything that happened in the catacombs, at least from my kind of looking out as kind of a third party, because my character didn't do a ton, and then Thistle wasn't there, so I was kind of watching everything go down for a lot of it. But it definitely felt like the only ally that Geller maybe had was Raiden in that whole scenario. And that feeling didn't really change after they left the catacombs. It still kind of felt like Geller was on the outs, and Raiden was kind of getting by just because he wasn't Geller.
Right. And just how Varela seemingly seemed like he was on the same page with him, and then just to turn and betray him immediately when things hit the fan really changed his perspective on it as well. But it there's a lot of deeper emotions happening here, and it has a lot to do also with Geller's disposition and relationship with authority.
Yeah, and that's something I think is interesting too, just on a bigger perspective for the group itself and how they all kind of interact with authority and authority figures. They all have a different kind of way of looking at it. It's like you have some characters, which I'd pinpoint like Bremia. Bremia seems to be very much like, I'm going to try to follow the rules. She's, if anyone is the rule follower in the group, I'd say Bremia is definitely the rule follower. Um, I would say a character, I'd say even Arve, and to some extent, tries to do that. And Raiden, well, I don't wouldn't call him a rule follower. I'd say he tries to respect like certain things. Um, I would say Geller and Thistle and Varellis potentially are the ones that are kind of like, well, if it really goes against my nature or goes against something I believe in, then I just don't think that's the way to go. Like Thistle and Geller are very different, but Thistle has like more of the natural world in mind than Geller probably does. But like if it violates like a natural order, she's gonna have an issue with it, even if it's the rules or the law or the sisterhood. Um, but yeah, I like that kind of how these characters are kind of all interacting in different ways and how they have these similarities. Um, I guess like one of the big points I think throughout the whole episode was that um, when they kind of returned to Brindlebrook and they kind of all got together, there's a lot of unresolved talking uh, between them. And I guess I'll just start with like, when they first find Thistle, after she had been sleeping, and she had her answer to what happened, but like for your character, Geller, I'm gonna take it that her answer wasn't satisfying to you or satisfying to Geller.
I mean, Geller didn't necessarily trust Thistle to begin with, but he certainly didn't think she would go as far as to trust a Silver Sister with people that she's come to care about that much. And so that was a little surprising. Um, but I think the fact that Thistle couldn't really do much herself in that situation, he's a little more sympathetic to her. Um, and seeing her as distraught as she is right now is certainly affecting him in a little bit. But he doesn't think that Thistle meant bad intentions in the situation, and certainly doesn't hold any sort of grudge for what she had done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of pivoting, Geller and Brimia have kind of, I'd say Geller and Brimia, other than Arve and Thistle, have like the closest connection between the characters, at least from what we've kind of witnessed throughout the campaign up to this point. Um, I'd say now Geller and Brimia have quite a lot of making up to do in some ways because their relationships kind of feels a little bit frayed. Um, when you're looking at that, like that relationship with Bremia, like how like it seems like if I had to pick one character that could influence Geller even a little bit, it probably would be Bremia. But also like that didn't seem to have the same impact when they were in that like altercation with the sisters. Like how how are you thinking about like how do you think Geller is viewing his relationship with Bremia now? Like does he believe that it's, you know, probably substantially changed from what it was?
I think this certainly, on the other end of it, will change the relationship going forward in some way. I'm not sure what that will take the form of. Um, but I've been really debating out of character how I'm going to sort of approach the entire situation. Because this is something I've not done a whole lot throughout my tabletop career is go so hard into a character's principles and beliefs and actually like fight for them in character. And usually I don't really have a leg to stand on for reasoning. Usually, no, I do it for the bit, or like I just think that this will, you know, flesh out the character a little more. It's never been so like friction creating as this has been.
Yeah, I can see that too because I've personally had those thoughts myself about my own character, but also like watching everything with Geller, I'm like, oh gosh, how do we move forward? How do we get back to like we're all one happy family, which I don't think we've ever necessarily been that, but you know what I mean, coming kind of together as a group.
I think that what it's going to ultimately come down to is finding some sort of middle ground on the idea of preservation and caring about others' lives versus, you know, is it worth sacrificing uh one's morals or values in the name of survival, I think is the real debate here. And on whether, you know, so Geller's belief is that if we had just, you know, been a cohesive unit in that situation, we would have been able to come out unscathed at all. But because we were so divided, the situation became more about the fear of the sisterhood and the implications of that and how that would affect our characters' survival going forward instead of trying to, you know, show a united front and be there for each other. And I think that's really the crux of where we need to find our common ground here.
Yeah, and I agree on that too. I mean, and I think for Geller's perspective, like I think him, if I look at him as a character and try to kind of ignore some of like the other people in the party, like he kind of feels like character's got a lot less to lose than some other people because he's already played he's already technically an outlaw, basically a criminal with people, so he's kind of played a lot of cards that others haven't necessarily played, and maybe that puts him in a different mindset than some characters, you know, like a Bremia situation, which Bremia, you know, I feel like is a good, she's really a good kind of place, and Raiden as well. Like those are two that have characters that have decent reputations, like with their family or with whatever, you know, work or position they've had in the past, and you know, this kind of stuff could really can really have a huge impact. I mean, they've Bremia, I think Bremia and Raiden were the only two characters, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nahili, that like they had somebody who was trying to protect them, like when the notices basically of these are the people we're hunting down, like they had either Raiden wasn't even showing up on the document that was looking for people, and then Bremia was like wholly like her identity was like almost clouded, so it was trying to protect her, so they've got people looking out for them because probably their reputation more than the others in the group.
Well, I mean, even Thistle's name was kind of like messed up too.
Yeah, that's more of an insult.
Thorn,
Yeah, this will be like, this is an insult to me.
Thorn
You saw,
Bramblefoot.
you saw when she said your name was Rog. She's like, who do I talk to about this?
But no,
Um,
Raiden's name being excluded is obviously because he comes from a very powerful family. So
yeah, but I think that's just interesting because you know Geller as a character is just in a different I think, like you said, like they gotta have like a united purpose at some point, kind of come together on something. And I was thinking for Thistle, because when she finds out about her home and everything that's going on, like you've got conversations that are happening around her, and they're talking about, saving the world or artifacts and things like that. And all Thistle's thinking about is my home is in danger, and the people or the animals that I care about are, potentially gone or dying. And that's all her head is at. And I think the only character in that moment, well, characters in the moment that understood that, I think to some extent, was probably Bremia and Arve. And that's why, like, her reaction was what it was, because she's like, the world, my world is here, my home is here, and that's what I'm like. She's that, when they were in Hearthvale, like she tried to, do what she could, and she was concerned, but this kind of brings it to a whole nother level for her, because it's like real for her. And so the whole world just went dark because her world is home. And so that's kind of where her headspace is. So a lot of the other stuff, like the whole sisterhood and stuff, like she could give a she doesn't care about any of that stuff. Oh, we need to chase down the sister with the artifact. She's like, I don't care about that. I just want my home to be safe. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's an interesting uh, dynamic for sure, like a parallel, so to speak, of the Geller sees what's happened at a scale that is both larger and a little more intimate, depending on which way you look at it. Um, because he believes that even though it's good and right to care about your own things like your home and your life and the people in your immediate area that are in danger that you care about, but on the flip side also you shouldn't back down and acquiesce to uh, something that gets its power from that fear. And that's how he feels about uh, acquiescing to the demands of the sisterhood. Um, and he does still intend to help with what's going on in the forest and whatnot in the mire, but he thinks there's a emotional and uh, moral, ethical core to what's happening here that the rest of the group isn't on, like a wavelength that him and Raiden seem to be standing on themselves, and Varellis is kind of a mystery. He kind of stands in between it all.
That's a good way of describing Varellis. Varellis is a mystery.
He's kind of like a neutral party in the whole situation.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I don't know. I'm gonna go eat something and take a nap. I break a log in half. But no, I completely agree. Like, there's people that are seeing beyond like the immediate and saying this is going to become a bigger problem if we don't address this issue. And then you have like the more like on the ground level of things, which is kind of where Thistle is. And I feel like I feel like in Hearthvale, there was like more unity with, okay, we got to save this people, but then, we need to kind of get to alert people of what's going on. And I feel like since they've like left Valmir and everything, like the purposes of people and what they're focused on have just shifted so much and kind of become disconnected. And it's been interesting, but it's also like they've all got to figure out, like, okay, we can, because there's going to be a reality potentially where they can't save like Thistle's home. And I think that will be, if that actually becomes the case, they can't save her home, and there is no there is no like silver lining or something that she can open up to that I think yeah, it's going to create a deeper for Thistle at least I could say. That's going to be a big hurdle for her cuz then she's got to think larger than her home, but for the character that's going to be it's going to be a big jump. Um but the group will have to make a decision on that point anyway. The group will also have to be like, okay, this is lost. We have to put our efforts elsewhere. And yeah, I think that'll be an interesting moment when that comes up and how soon or how long that takes to get to that point. But it'll be fun to see.
Certainly. A thing we're not sure, I'm not sure about, I guess, is if we're trying to stop like the Silver Sister before she gets back to Celestra, how long do we really have to focus on what's going on in the mire before she gets back there, and now we have to deal with getting into Celestra to obtain the artifact and whatnot. And uh, uh there's another thing I want to talk about that is a kind of another big reason why Geller felt the need to stand up the way he did, and it's that he feels his fate in a what's the word, in an agreeable situation with the sisterhood will always end in his death, because it was only the night previous that he was told that his other two companions who had died, or who had helped him defeat that Crimson Sister in the past, were executed quite horrifically. And so he's like, oh well, if I'm figured out at all, that's it for me. Um, and on top of that, with everything else, with them having the artifact, what that means, that'll likely give them more power. It's a lot that Geller feels that he needs to care about, as well as the lives of his companions. And his ultimate decision, it was like, well, I guess then I'm gonna have to do this on my own, because we don't have the same priority right now.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think and again, Healy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think from what I understood, it was that the group that they were meeting with, the council, basically said that they weren't sure if the Silver Sister was actually going to take that to Celestra or not. Like they knew potentially her motives a little bit more. Is that right?
Uh,
Yeah,
Council of Mire definitely suspects there are sisters that don't agree with the sisterhood as it is. They believe probably more in the tenets of like what their sisters actually stand for. So there's certainly like I would say there's definitely sisters out there that are working probably to restore some of the traditions of the sisterhoods that kind of steered off course. So kind of think of like Ahsoka's a pretty big character in Star Wars, right? And she had a big problem with the Jedi themselves. She believed that they weren't living up to the standards that the Jedi should, right? She thought they should have been peacekeepers, not warriors. But they ended up being warriors because of the war, right? It changed them fundamentally. So there's probably sisters, and the Council of Mire can recognize that there are sisters that are certainly doing just that. They're seeing a fundamental change in how they're acting in the present day, and I guess they're kind of almost like traditionalists. They're trying to get back to like what the sisters were fundamentally, right? So I think they recognize like the Silver Sister went to you guys, helped you for some reason, which is abnormal, and they have a good feeling that she might be doing something to protect the sisterhood while maybe protecting the artifact. But it's definitely not 100% positive on their end either. It's more of a gut feeling.
I do have a question regarding that toward you, uh, Nihili.
Yeah, go for it.
How much of it was an intention to have the Sisterhood be an antagonistic force going into this whole campaign?
Well, it's always been a plan to kind of like give you guys, the players, the information that uh, there are people that don't think the sisterhood is good. And you guys got a lot of information that kind of fed into that belief. But as of recent, you've been actually seeing sisters that aren't exactly fitting that mold. Even the red sister, right? When you went up against her, she didn't use her full force. She was actually using a lot of passive abilities to try to subdue you in the moment. She wasn't really trying to like inflict harm, especially with so many people who were conflicted in the decision you were making. Um, I purposely did that to try to show like some of the sisters act in accordance to their actual beliefs. They believe that justice should be done correctly, like the Red Sisters. You know, they're the enforcers. They go and take people in, but they didn't see anyone doing anything necessarily wrong. But she was getting pushed a little bit by Geller, and it was getting to the point that if he wasn't subdued, then she was going to have to take more measurable actions. But one of your party members were so honest. I'll be honest, it probably shocked the hell out of her when RV told her as much as she did. She was like, wait a minute. You didn't even have to tell me about Hearthvale, and you are okay. So you are the Hearthvale 6 on top of everything else that I'm finding out. Okay, well this is really starting to get really complex, but it's because of the honesty that one of your players showed is the reason why she actually ended up deciding to spare everyone. I did set her up with a lot of like aggression, but overall, yeah, the narrative is that you got your own personal feelings as a character, Geller, and that fed into a lot of the disbelief with like Bremia's character, for example. So she probably got a lot of an inkling of what the sisters were like. And then you had Hearthvale incident, which kind of hinted that the sisters were involved, but later on you're finding out that that may not necessarily be entirely true, because you found out Valen's a double agent, now with the Council of Mire. And then you're hearing these things about the sisterhood amongst the streets of Valmir. Like you're hearing a lot of negativity, but there's also a lot of positivity too, because when you guys went to Brindlebrook, you hear the aunt and you hear some of the citizens actually saying, no, the sisters are good. Like they let us live in peace. They enforce things. They keep order here, and we have no problems with them. And so you're getting like what you would probably get in real life is where you'd have like factions where people hear stories, that those stories become almost self-truths, and now it's up to everyone to decide whether they're going to invest the time to find out what the actual truth is or just believe the tales they're told. It's a very complex relationship between the sisters and their story, because obviously there's
So
going
they
to
were intended to be more like morally gray.
100%, but depending on how your interactions with them, you might see them as bad people or good people. It really depends on your interactions with them, and Geller's interactions with them in the past obviously were positive, right? So he's got a very different view.
And the sisters just in general have different relationships with different groups on the continent. Like, for example, I would say the dwarves in general and the sisters, I think based on lore, have not really ever really got along. So if you grow up in the dwarven area, you probably already are being basically born to distrust the sisterhood. Where if you're growing up like in Brindlebrook or the Valmir, you're probably, understanding their power, but maybe not to the point of we're just scared of them, basically.
Yeah, I figured that Geller's youth and him growing up in the system of the dwarves certainly plays a role into his distrust of other things like the sisterhood, and certainly would have a worse opinion of them based on the propaganda of his culture within.
Well, then you also have their strict laws, right? Like men can't perform magic, right? Obviously, a large swath of that population that not a large swath, but a percentage of the men that actually can cast magic, they're going to have a negative outlook on that too. And you're going to have there's just a lot of things about them that obviously people can see as evil, but there's a lot of good that they do as well because of the actions they take. It's just that good is often overshadowed because they're a mysterious group. People don't know a lot about their inner workings, and because you don't know a lot about an inner workings of a group, you only see what they show on the outside, right? So they're definitely supposed to be right in the middle out of character knowledge wise. Like they're not supposed to be an evil or good force, but they're certainly going to come across as either or depending on your perspectives.
Certainly, I think a big thing too is that, like you said, that they have such an authority over magic itself that Geller feels that that alone and how they wield magic as something that is theirs rather than something that is innate and accessible to everyone, that they use that control of it as a tool of fear to keep people down, to keep people uh, looking at them as if they're in control and that they hold this power over them.
Right. And that might not be the case because there might be a reason why they do that, right? Because there's a long history of wars and conflicts that happened on not just your continent, but other continents. And they were developed from some of those conflicts, right? The Sisterhood was born into existence because of conflicts. And their whole purpose is to bring order to that chaos. They don't want to see the world plunged into that chaos again. Now, I'm not saying that as a out of character observer, we should agree with what the sisters are doing, right? Because they're obviously restricting a lot of those freedoms too. Like you said, with the magic shouldn't be restricted to just one group. But for them, it's like, well, this is how we maintain order. This is how we maintain us from going back into that
Right.
dark ages.
It's riding that line of, like, at what point do you become what you were fighting against in the first place?
Yes, and I think that's why you have that Silver Sister, for example, that are like, oh, I don't agree with some of these tenets that we're doing because this doesn't feel right. Like you're getting some of the sisters that are actually starting to think that way, and that's why you ran into the Silver Sister and even the Red Sister. Like both of them did not actually have a single aggressive attack sent out. No like offensive magics that would actually physically cause you harm. Even like when the Crimson Sister did that repulsing effect to push everyone away and she ended up putting a couple people in that corridor, that was all tactical awareness. She wasn't trying to hurt anyone, but she was certainly trying to keep the relic in place there because she figured, all right, if there's some people that are locked behind that door, that relic has to stay here. Like it was all like planned out in her head. Uh, but like I said too, I think if that conflict kept going, I think she probably would have had no choice but to resort to aggression, because Geller, and I'm not saying he was wrong in this either, because I actually am, I get into the mindset of Geller, and I'm like, no, Geller has a broader perspective of this. No one knows what that relic is, but that sister probably still would have had to attack you aggressively because her life was going to eventually be on the line. So she's like, okay, well, I can't keep doing this, and then I got to worry about my Silver Sister here that is now asleep, and then we got. Yeah, it was just a lot. So she was trying to manage the battlefield, but she was like, it was getting tougher and tougher as time went on. Um, but I think with our new PvP rule set that we got going, I think probably some of that would have been different, even for Geller and even for the sisters. So I think some of that would have been different, but I think we did pretty well for a spur of the moment PvP match for sure.
Yeah, it went really well. The whole, I think, in the big thing, I think, was for a long time Varellis wasn't in the order of what was happening, and I think he would have came in a lot sooner and dealt with me was what would have happened. As well as, perhaps the Silver Sister getting up sooner. But uh, in terms of like, Geller feels that they found the artifact. And so when the sister comes in, she's like, well, we want the artifact. You can go. Like, you can keep doing what you're doing, leave. But we're going to take the artifact because it's ours. It's like, well, no. One, you don't even know what it does. I don't know what it does. It could do anything. And we found it. So you might, spare our lives, but you're going to use your power, authority, and such to take what is rightfully ours. And I'm just not going to allow that to happen. And you're probably not even going to use it for anything very good. So I'm standing right here.
Oh, yeah. I didn't blame Geller at all. Like, out of character, I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. I love this. Like, he's sticking to his character. This is great. You got Bremia that's on the cusp of, like, I mean, you saw it later on in another session. You guys are actually, like, your characters were yelling at each other. So you were, like, you're seeing some character tensions and growth. And I love that whole scene. And, yeah, I totally get where Geller was coming from. He's like, no, this is another thing that you're going to take away from the people. This is bullshit. I am not going to allow this to stand. But for the sisters, even if they're questioning their own sister, there's still like things that they've learned innately, things that they've grown up with. And it's hard to get some of that. I don't want to say programming because they're not a cult, but it's hard to get some of those teachings out of their head. Like, the artifact. It's a Silver Sister. Yeah, I need to hold this and protect it. Like, I don't think it was malcontent, her actions, for sure.
No, they have. It's kind of like the inner workings, like that everyone else doesn't know other than the sisters. That artifacts like that are by law supposed to go in the vault in Celestra. Like, that's why as soon as Serenia saw that artifact or learned of it, because she didn't know originally.
Look, I don't got
That
no
really-
list of laws, okay?
Yeah, but as soon as she saw that, that complicated everything. Like, she knew immediately that okay, there's no way that we can get RFA out and also not take that artifact. So that's one reason she was like, hey, you need to have Bremia hold this. Not knowing 100% that Bremia was going to hand it to her immediately, which was perfect. But
I was shaking my head the whole time. I was like,
oh my gosh, not knowing that she was 100%. Yeah, not knowing that, but also like thinking, okay, if I have to try to disarm someone, it's going to be easier to disarm Bremia than it will be to disarm Geller. That's what her thought was in that head. Like, to get the water effect from someone, she's most likely going to be able to get it from Bremia much easier than Geller. So that was her thought process. And then, of course, it was handed over. And that was like, okay, well, this is the easiest thing ever. I'm just going to reveal myself. We're going to rescue Theral's friend. And then we're going to save my sister. And we're going to get out of here. And it was all going great until Geller came in. It was like, stop.
Yep.
But he had every right to do that because it did make sense for his character, and I think with your explanation too tonight, it adds a little bit more depth to it too, because it's like it was just like this is another example of them just inserting more control.
Yeah, there was a lot to it, and I was like getting a little I don't know if frustration is the right word. Just like, all right, they're saying that this is what's happening right now, and that all Geller's just not thinking about the group. He's he's trying to kill everybody and stuff like that. And I'm like, a little deeper than that, but okay.
I loved when Bremia did that with you because it is her character. Like her character's young, and I think that character
She plays it really well. She does it really well.
Yeah, like she plays it like to the sleeve. Like, she's impulsive, which is wonderful because she's like, nope, this is wrong. You can't do this. No, no. You're jeopardizing us all. Didn't you hear them? They'd let us go if we had the artifact. Like, just let them have it. We can walk out of here. She's thinking of the moment. She's thinking passionately with her heart. She's like, I want to protect my friends, and the only way I protect my friends is giving them the artifact. Let's go. Like, she's not
I
thinking
had a
of
lot
the
of
bigger
trouble with
picture.
that role play because I didn't fully articulate in my head the reasons why Geller was doing what he was doing. It's just that I knew this is what Geller would do in this moment. And so I was trying to find, well, what would he say in this crazy situation to try to convince them, because I haven't really thought this through yet.
I knew there was going to be combat when you guys entered. I just didn't know in what form. So when Raiden and you decided to kind of like team up, and actually, Raiden did get away with a lot in that scene, I feel like, and his character. Like, there's not anyone really holding him accountable. It's all on Geller.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just because Geller initiated everything.
Yeah. But it is good. It's kind of interesting retrospectively. It's like Raiden also literally like got the relic outside the cave. Like, he was actively working against the other half of the party.
I mean,
I
I'm
think
gonna
his
say
status,
this.
though, gives him some, immunity in some way. And Geller doesn't have any of that going for him, so.
Yeah, I was just gonna say one thing. I personally think actually that at least in the interim that Geller and Ryden got off pretty easy. Because I was thinking, I was watching the scene when they were leaving the catacombs. I was like, what? They didn't put like Geller on a rope and drag him like he was just allowed to walk freely for that. Like, it was kind of like, give a moment. We're gonna continue, and it's like Geller at any point could have been like, I'm done with you, and like left. Like, he did stick with the group, and the group did not like be like, we have to put him in the corner or something like that, or have him on chains, or you know what I mean. But like, there was really no immediate aftermath there, and I was like, that's surprising. And then I think I told I don't know if I told Nahili or Arve, but I was just also like, Thistle still doesn't know the full impact of everything that happened. There were multiple opportunities for it to be said, because I was like, if Thistle had learned in that immediate aftermath that, okay, Geller did this and he put your friend Arve in danger, then Thistle would have like wrapped him up in vines. They probably would have had PvP right there. Geller probably would have won, but still Thistle would have done everything
I
she could.
like to think that the rest of the party has some care for Geller and understanding.
Like,
But I mean, he
say,
did just kind of give up when they were carrying him out, and I would hope that would, make it seem like, oh, he's not really a threat anymore.
yeah.
And Varellis kind of did threaten him right after. And he said,
Yeah.
you have some explaining to do. And that's how it kind of went. It did surprise me too that whole session we kind of avoided talking about all of it until like one part in the middle and like another part at the end, and we still didn't fully get into it. And I was like, man, I'm ready for this conversation, y'all. Let's do this.
Yeah. And I think, for at least I'd say from Thistle's point of view, that conversation matters less now than it did probably before. Because for her head's obviously in a completely different place. So it's like, yeah, if that conversation came up now, she probably wouldn't react in the same way she would have if it had happened before they found out about her home. Because now her whole heart and mind is just focused on that.
Well, I also think Arve didn't say anything because she didn't want to like upset Thistle, and I think Raiden didn't want to say anything, or even Bremia, really in terrible detail, because they probably do have some care for Geller even after all of that, especially Bremia. I feel like Bremia has like this daughter relationship with Geller. I'm not saying like she thinks of him as a father, but it's definitely like that whole mentor thing. So she wasn't going to put you in an awkward situation, even though towards the end of that session, you could tell she was getting mad. So probably Thistle looking at this, she's like, I don't know where this is all like stemming from, this raw anger, but uh obviously this was probably more occupied on her home, but still, you know what I mean? Like there was that raw anger at the end of that session. It was like, oh man, we waited the whole session to now have this discussion. Oh boy. And then you had Varellis. I think Varellis kind of just goes with the flow at the moment, so I don't think he really was going to say anything one way or another.
I mean, something I was thinking about that as well was, uh, like, we probably would have had enough time to have that conversation at the end, but we took a lot of time to divvy up the loot we got, which we probably could have just done after the fact.
Agreed.
Yeah. Excuse me. Something we can consider in the future too. Also, it was funny because it was kind of an in character / out of character thing. We got to the loot and Geller's like, "Well, I'm going." And everyone else is like, "Not
I'm
with all
out of
that,
here.
not with everything you've got." Oh my God, that was like literally. I think all of us, whether we said it or not, we're kind of bursting out laughing at
It's like,
that.
what,
We're
he's gonna
like, "Man,
rob me? Now we're
yeah,
actually PvP.
there would be real PvP there."
Yeah, and then obviously you had the whole truth bomb dropped in that same session too from the Council of Mire, giving you the not the local picture but the global picture from their network. Because obviously they have some affluential members amongst them, including one of the children of the Lion Generals. So yeah, you guys had a lot to unpack there. Then you had the local news about the marsh. Then you had um, information about like this plague is a lot different than what you guys dealt with in Hearthvale. They couldn't find a central source like you could in Hearthvale. And then you learned that their spy network is pretty extensive because there might have been citizens within Hearthvale that also worked for this network. There's citizens in Valmir, obviously, with Kalen, that they had eyes on you for most of your journey. So that's kind of also like a little like, okay, this is kind of weird that we've been watched this whole time, but there's a lot of information going on there. So
Yeah, it wasn't just a filler episode.
nope. And then you got a lorddom too, because you actually got the name of the civilization that once existed in the northern continent. So
And I did say it in chat, but since Raiden was like, why can't we just all get along? Uh, I- it's like, well, I think on a storytelling perspective, that having characters have believable actions and motivations and having those clash early on with the people who are supposed to be their allies and like the main group or the found family or whatever, I think earning that creates a more rich story going into the future and a more believable relationship between the main casts. Um, and I think once we get through all that, that we'll have a more stronger bond that'll be more believable going forward.
I agree.
and it would be boring if you all got along. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I gotta have conflict.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, even the characters that get along or had gotten along, like Gela and Bremy had gotten along for the most part. Thistle and Arve had gotten along. They've each had like little hiccups now and there. I'd say it's been hiccups for Arve and Thistle, and I'd say it's now been more than a hiccup for Geller and Brimia. But even the relationships that were kind of pre-established, um, like they're seeing like their own trials and tribulations. So that kind of helps again better develop the characters and the group dynamics.
Yeah, I don't know if it was purposely done, but I would say Bremia again seems to be a little bit more the heart of the group where she's trying to keep you all together. She's really
Yeah, I
fighting
agree.
hard.
I think
I
that
think
young naivety is what really helps with that. And that's why I was saying, like, she does a really good job playing that aspect of her character. I don't know if that's intentional or not. So, because I don't know her well enough in real life, to be honest, but it's really good. I think she's doing a really good job.
I mean,
I agree.
speaking of her as a player, she has blossomed into, like, no one would know that she's new to pen and paper a year ago. Like she has gotten really invested in her characters, and it shows. Like, it's really impressive to watch that growth in real time, because I'm utterly impressed every time she does something. I'm always surprised now, because that yelling scene with you, I was like, I think we were all quiet for a moment because it felt real. Like, it was like, oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah. It was
It,
funny with you, Geller, because when you were yelling, you were trying to keep up Geller's accent. And it kind of came out for a second. I was like, oh, he's trying his hardest.
I'm trying. It gets a little harder to maintain the accent when I get louder, but yeah, no, I'm lucky to have been able to bounce off of someone so in character and passionate about their side of it, because it lets me get out the things that I want to get out in character.
Yeah, it's been a real treat too, to just kind of watch you all play. I think that's the strength of Daggerheart, though, is it's really designed to let players lead a lot more. Honestly, it's just the narrative structure of the system, I think, is just really, yeah, open to that.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
agree.
We even had a lot of combat, and we're already level 4.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, it's more about the scenes, like the acts. So as you progress and you, even okay, so this is something that I told uh, Cersei here off stream, is that everything that you guys have been doing, there's counters that I have to keep track of behind the scenes, because the world is still moving on when you guys are dealing with all this stuff. So when Arve did what she did in town that ended up having her go back to the catacombs, I had no plans for that. I had plans for you guys to go in the marsh, but there was something else that was brewing, and I had to mark the counter down. When you guys did all this discussions and stuff, the counters are still clicking in the background. And so the plague that's in the marsh actually was supposed to be far more minimal than what it was, but because there has been so many, like, deterred paths, which is, again, awesome. And I am not saying that we shouldn't have had those deterred paths, but that counter was still going. So I was like, well, this little plague is now starting to turn into a much bigger problem in the marsh, because they've steered course, and that's perfectly fine. But the world still is evolving, and I love that the counter system in Daggerheart is like they purposely put in their rule set, like, hey, put counters and make sure that your world still feels alive, even though your players might be micro focused on something else. So it's really neat to see, like, what I had planned get thrown out the window by great role play.
Yeah,
It was good.
I could have had a nice little tea at Thistle's house, but now Thistle's house is probably all corrupted, so no tea there now.
uh, was it always the intention to introduce Serena to the narrative in that way, or was it sort of last minute? Oh well, the whole party's about to go up against this Crimson Sister. Maybe she should have an ally or something. Maybe I'm kind of curious what the talk was behind all that.
Well, Cersei came to me and asked me if she could do something, which I'm always open for players,
That's basically what I said. Can I do something?
well, no, that's more or less like, hey, I want to run an idea by you. And I'm always open for players. Like, if you want to do something that surprises the group and it makes sense, let's do it. And she came up with a whole story. She sent me DM's worth of information. I read it and I was like, all right, yeah, we can certainly do that. The intention, though, I think it was for her to actually be by your guys' side in case the Red Sister actually aggressively attacked you, went out of character for the Red Sister. If she was just purely aggressive, for the sake of being aggressive. I think she was going to actually side with you guys. But the fact that this red sister wasn't like that, the silver sister ended up siding with the red sister.
Yeah, and just to give like the whole thing, yeah, it was something that I character wise I was thinking with Thistle first, and I was like, Thistle's over here, and she was extremely worried for her friend, and actually my other character, which I need to continue doing her forum post stuff, but she was actually leaving Celestra and she was going to be heading toward Valmir for a separate thing. So it made sense her direction was actually going to intercept with Brindlebrook. So it kind of all kind of lined up really well. And Thistle having met and interacted with the Silver Sister before, it just kind of made sense and to an extent. And also it was one of those ways where like Serenia is a character, which I won't give too much away, but it's kind of how Nahili described, like she doesn't necessarily, like, she follows her oaths and what she's supposed to, but she doesn't agree with everything that the sisterhood does and some of their archaic like beliefs. And so she's actually a good ally to have. And her whole goal in, trying to be Thistle in that moment was just to ensure like nothing outward is happening. Like if she had went into that cavern and found that the sister there was actually, working against her own oaths and was actually trying to hurt, Arve or any of the group, she would have stood between them. And that's why she was kind of insistent when she revealed herself, like, why can't we just go? Like your oath is going to be, you know, satisfied what you've agreed to. So there was some back and forth, and I think they were mostly talking about semantics back and forth, but they eventually came to like an agreement. And for her, she was like, okay, this sister is abiding by what she should, and I'm doing my duty, as a sister now to ensure that my sister will be returned home and this artifact will be safe, because that is also her duty to protect the artifact. But yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't something that would have been planned like a long time in advance. And then I was just interested to see how this was all going to work out, especially because I didn't expect my expect to fall asleep. Oh my gosh! And also, I think Geller
I was
and
surprised
I
it
think
worked at all, honestly.
I think our characters are like I think you're a wizard, right?
Yeah, a war wizard.
Yeah, my character's also technically, even though their class is a wizard. So we had some overlap in some of our abilities and stuff, except as a silver sister, a lot of her abilities are not like lethal abilities. She's got lots of illusion stuff and things that are meant to incapacitate, where the red sister would have a lot more abilities that are meant to actually harm. So even with it, like if she had been able to, like all she was gonna try to do is put you to sleep. She's like, that's all I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna try to harm this individual. Um, but yeah.
The dice gods were in my favor when you failed like 5 rolls in a row.
Yep.
I will say this too about the Serena situation. I would hope that any of you that want to do things that surprise the other players, you're more than welcome to come to me. Like Geller, you've actually been really good about it too. You've been sending a lot of DMs regarding like your special group, and it's actually let me like plot a few things for you. So I just want to leave that door open for you guys to be like, hey, we want to surprise everybody with this, and as long as it makes sense in the scene for that moment, I encourage that. I want you to world build with me. So
uh I do think you kind of have to be careful sometimes with doing that, because uh there was a moment where I was like, okay, why is Cersei bringing in her like other character in here and like trying to solve the whole problem with this other character that's not involved with our group. It's like, oh, okay, this was like a thing that they planned to do, but for what reason? And so it's like you got to be careful because sometimes it can compromise like agency in some way, depending on what you're doing, you know. But it was fine. It was good.
Yeah, no, like I said, as long as it makes sense to the scene. Like I'm not just gonna, oh, I think killers, last survivors of this group are gonna show up. If you're in the middle of the ocean, that makes no sense. I'm sorry, but we'll try to work it in there somewhere. Like just an example. I'm not saying we're gonna do that, but you know what I mean. Like it has to make sense. And for that moment, it made sense because I knew where Serena kinda was based on their DM, her Discord post on our other Discord. So it kind of made sense. Plus, it does fit the narrative with the. I mean, you guys learned about the elves, like what they might actually have been up to, in Valmir. So you're getting a little bit more view on some of these characters that you have run into as well, and there is a movement going on behind the scenes that are working in accordance with you guys. It just doesn't seem so apparent right now. Because you guys have been isolated pretty much. I mean, you've been on the run pretty much too since the archivist. Like, you guys need a break. You need like a little vacation.
Yeah.
It's great. But I do want people to feel that they can collaborate though. I feel like if you're in a homebrew campaign like we are, and you're playing a dwarf, sure, we've got some of that lore written, but I have no problems with us collaborating and introducing new elements to it that you feel fit, or like Tony's character there, Arave, she's completely a unique character. We had no plans for Fungrel to be part of our campaign world, but she wanted to play a half Fungrel, so now we have like this small little society in the marshes that are all Fungrel. Like, I love that incorporation. I like when people can feel like they can help world build it, because it feels like it's our story, not a me or Cersei story.
Yeah, I thought fungal were like their own race and not like a modifier to a race, which was kind of weird for me to like think about. It's like, oh, she's an elf, but she like became a fungal.
Yeah, and our homebrew, like I said, we didn't have any plans for the Fungrel, so for us they're actually more of a group that's kind of been either, we don't know if it's a curse or a virus or some sort of thing. People might call it a curse, some people might call us an illness or a plague, but they were probably a long time ago people, and then over generations they probably have propagate, just gave birth and created their own little society, but they weren't ever like supposed to be like a thing on our world. And we don't know the origins of that virus or illness or curse or plague. We don't know what the origins of that was, and that's how Tony got infected by this thing or cursed by this thing or whatever the outcome is that we'll discover in the future. That's how it is. I know it's different in other like worlds where like the fungal are actually like a race, especially in like D&D. Like they're a species. They're set in their own ways. They're not like from something else. But we wanted to be a little different because we didn't really have plans for them, and we didn't want to create like a massive lore for them. So that's why you learn like they're isolated from the rest of the world. Everyone treats them pretty much like a leper colony. You know what I mean? Like they don't. Yeah. So we want to make it different, and you'll find out too. Like there's a little other differences with D&D and here, like our tiefling colony on the other side. They still have the same like prejudices, I guess, that you would expect. They got the demon qualities to them and stuff, but they're not really demons. They're just trying to. They're like everyone else, are just trying to live, but they also have like a monastery type vibe to them over there. So we're trying to change it up a little bit with certain races to fit them into the world that we created that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out
Originally-
things I can do differently with like the dwarven stuff. I really enjoyed coming up with, like, because I was thinking about, well, what would the educational system be for for Geller growing up? And it's like, well, I think it makes sense that dwarves would sort of specialize in specific trades or artisan work like really early on in their age, and so that kind of plays into their whole educational system in my backstory that only you and me know.
Yes, and I won't reveal that unless it comes naturally, obviously, in the scenes, and then whatever you wish to reveal, obviously.
Yeah, I think when more stuff comes out about the character, there'll be a lot of it that can be shared.
Because it almost did come out a little bit when you were talking to Kalen. He's like, "Oh yes, we know about your," and then you're like, "Nope, I'm out of here. You're not talking about that. Nope, bye."
Yeah, the wound's still open about learning about their deaths.
Yeah, he was about to tell you too how they died. Like,
Yeah, that wouldn't have been very good at this moment in time.
I thought it was great. I was like, "Oh, poor Geller. This guy who he doesn't know, who obviously has strong affiliations with Raiden, is about to tell him how his friends died." That's comes across insensitive, but okay, sure. Instead of doing it privately, like, "Hey Geller, if you want, we could talk privately about the matter." Like, he didn't do that. He was going to talk publicly. So
Yeah.
it's good. It was a good session. I liked it. Actually, someone who's watching right now actually watched our, I think, towards the end of our last stream, and he got to hear some of the screaming, and he made a reaction to it. So he was like, "Oh my, what did I walk into here?"
Were you gonna say something earlier, sister? I'm sorry I interrupted you when you were about to talk.
Nope.
But yeah, Daggerheart's great. I think I love seeing how Thistle's developed too, because I think Thistle started off so positive and optimistic and almost came across naive, but obviously she's older. She knows stuff. It's just she comes across that way sometimes. And now you're going to see a little bit more serious Thistle with, her home and stuff, and maybe a little more morose Thistle because of everything that she's hearing about her, her marshlands. So I think it's kind of nice to see even like a happy-go-lucky kind of character have development that leans towards that way. So
Yep. She's in her 40s, so she's not a young halfling. She's living it up in her life.
yeah, there's been a lot of character growth. Even Raiden's character had to decide whether or not to go against his, figuratively father within his own noble house. So it's just interesting to see everything unravel from your time in Hearthvale to now. You guys, even though we haven't had a very long campaign yet, I in terms of D&D time, a lot has happened. So it's very good.
You want to talk about your Star Wars stuff now?
Yes, we'll shift into the a little bit. We won't go too long, Cersei, about that. I know, Geller, you probably like, I gotta get going.
Yeah, I should probably get out of here.
But we'll talk a little bit about why we're moving to Mass Effect and going into Star Wars.
Thank you for joining us, Geller.
Yes, thank you.
As always. It's wonderful to have a conversation with y'all.
Oh, you too. We missed you.
Yeah, I have trouble having deeper conversations and playing a video game at the same time. I just end up pacing around.
Oh, you're okay. If we ever do stream a game and we're doing our Tomorrow Talk, we don't expect people to game with us. We're just having, it's kind of like almost background noise just to have some movement on the screen. So.
Okay.
Because I think the last time we did that pirate game, we were still talking about Daggerheart. So.
Well, I'll see you guys later.
See ya.
Later, Esling. All right. So the other part of our discussion is why we're moving from Star Wars to Mass Effect. Well, I'll just keep it short and simple, as we had some player adjustments. And because Mass Effect was so young in an infancy of story, it just didn't make sense to uh, exclude that player character from the scene that they were currently involved in. So the decision to move to Star Wars was made. And I'll speak on this, and then Cersei, if you want to add anything to it, please do. But we are moving from Edge of the Empire system, which was a narrative system. It was pretty good. We played it for almost 9 months, give or take. So we used that system pretty regularly. But what I was finding out too is that not only is it lacking the support it needs to go beyond a certain threshold, the character growth in that system is very strange for a long-term campaign. Going on a year, it was getting a little tough. So with the Star Wars 5e system, they've got all the way up to 9th level abilities. They've got feats. They've got, a natural way to grow. And it is a little bit more flushed out for like long form play. What are your thoughts on all of that, Cersei?
Yeah, I mean, I think our last system we were using with Star Wars when we were doing it last, we kind of just reached a point where there were, first of all, system support issues for us to continue it. Otherwise, I think we would have continued where we were. So this just makes sense. It allows us to return to the Star Wars universe, though in a different time period. And, we've got a system now that has active support. So we're not going to have to be concerned of one day it's just going to vanish, which I think is honestly the biggest thing, because that was, I think, deflating for our group at that point, because, we had all developed characters in that world that we had, my character and Tony's character were the ones that were the newest to the group, but we were getting into those as well. And you had Carrick, who was the Jedi, and then we had HX, and then we also had Nyella, which those were really well developed characters that we kind of had to scrap because of that. So yeah, we want to avoid that going forward. So with this new Star Wars system, it'll allow us to build characters and not really have to worry about the campaign just getting, completely thrown off course. And then we're going to be we've been using Roll20, but we're actually going to be going to, is it Forge?
Yes, we'll be using Foundry VTT, which is hosted through a web platform called The Forge. And it just allows for a lot smoother mitigation or migration of information, like the full compodium. You literally can just drag things into the character sheets that are missing. So pretty much you can use the website initially to create your character, and then you just transfer the character over to Foundry, and then you can just do your updates through Foundry, which is perfect. You still would use the website for like, how many spell slots do I get when I level up, or is there any special features I get when I level up, things like that. You'd still use the website for, but because Foundry's designed the way it is, you can just drag those things right into your character sheet. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that kind of system helps the longevity as well, so it's less complicated, because we haven't done a lot of 5e systems. We were trying to do that with Mass Effect. We had done another pen and paper before we did our last Star Wars campaign, which was kind of set with that as well. But we haven't had a ton of, some of us haven't had a ton of exposure to that. So it's still a relatively new system to some people. The easier mechanics with the system we're using is always great. So we don't have to overcomplicate things, but yeah, it should be fun. It should be a lot of fun. What time period in Star Wars does this take place?
Yeah, so unlike our other one, which was the Old Republic era, and like I said, we did that almost going towards a year. So we hit that period hard. We're doing the 10 years after the Galactic Republic has formed. Not the Galactic Republic, Galactic Empire. So the Republic is gone. The Republic has just gotten taken over by Palpatine and his cronies. And but we're not in the rebellion era yet. So we're in the period of time where shadowed, splintered groups are, there's pocket groups that might be rebelling against the Empire, but they're not organized. There is no Leia. Leia's still a kid. Luke's still a kid, at least at the start of where we're role playing. Maybe they'll become adults eventually, depending on how long we play. But yeah, we're going to be starting in an era where Jedi are hunted. There's tales of Jedi being the usurpers that caused the problems of the Republic. The stories that the Empire has twisted and created to manufacture, pretty much to help them manhunt the remaining Jedi. Then you'll see people just trying to scrape by, survive. There's going to be a lot of mercenary groups, a lot of banditry, especially in the Outer Rim, because the Empire is now trying to rebuild its power base after, the Clone Wars. There's a lot of resources that they have to regather. They're probably dismantling a lot of the Republic-aged ships and re-establishing them as Star Destroyers and TIE Fighters, things like that. So you're going to see a lot of the Andor era kind of role play going on. If you've ever watched Star Wars Andor, it's very akin to that vibe.
Yeah, and also I think this campaign is going to be, in some ways, I think it's going to be a little bit made in similarity to kind of how our Daggerheart is. And what I mean by that is, I feel like with Mass Effect, and I feel like with our previous Star Wars campaign, a lot of it was kind of we've got some larger authority that's kind of guiding us along or showing us where we need to go. And this is going to be one of those campaigns where that might not necessarily be the case. We're kind of going to have, we kind of already discussed, we're going to be a part of a mercenary type group. And, but we're each going to have our own characters, our own jobs, our own backgrounds. And, we'll kind of have to go based on our own characters and where the group wants to go, and more so of, the Republic or the Jedi is telling us to go here. Like in our last campaign, it was kind of we had some larger force that was sending us on missions. That isn't necessarily the case here. So I think that'd be an interesting difference as well. We also have, as Nahili is going through on the screen, a larger host of races will be actually able to choose from. So that will be exciting. And then the Jedi obviously be a very different Jedi. Where from the previous campaign, we had Carrick Maze, we had Ulatan, and they were proud and out there Jedi. The Jedi, if we have a Jedi in our campaign, that's actually still a question mark. But they aren't going to be as open or shouldn't be as open with their identity in this campaign. As Nahili said, they'll be hunted, and that could actually be a big problem if someone was more apparent that they're a Jedi.
Yeah, when we do our session 0 tomorrow, when we get to the class portion, I will have anyone that decides to be a Jedi to DM me, but they're going to have to choose amongst the classes I'm showing on the screen to tell the group that they are, but they probably aren't. So even though everyone's hearing what classes that people are playing, they might be surprised that there might be a Jedi amongst them or two. So
yeah, some of those details, since this will be actually our first session 0 we've broadcast in our campaigns, so that'll be exciting. But it also, yeah, there'll probably be some secrets that the stream won't exactly see, and the other players in the group won't exactly know, at least not initially. So that'll be fun. I'm sure there'll be some little tidbits even beyond the Jedi stuff that will kind of be kept hidden, but for good reason. I think I personally, as a player, I like to find out things as a player rather than know the background out of character sometimes. I like to kind of be surprised, so I think it'd be fun. It'd be a fun time.
I agree. But whoever does end up playing a Jedi, they're gonna have to be careful how they use their Force powers. They're probably not going to be using a lightsaber. They'll probably be using some sort of like martial sword or something like that, like a vibro sword or a light foil or something along those lines. But they probably won't be using a lightsaber so openly. But then you'll have like it'll. This campaign's definitely designed to like not really be about. I mean, it's really not about the Jedi. It's about surviving a corrupted system that's working against them. Their freedoms are being restricted. Not only is their freedoms being restricted, but there's a lot of lawlessness too that they're going to have to confront. So there's a political machine that's against the players as well as a corrupted system around them. So that will be awesome. And then they're starting on an outer rim planet called Bahiboth, and a small town called Dusthaven, which will be a Western themed outer world settlement. So it'll have like its very Mandalorian type vibe to it. If you ever watched The Mandalorian, it's kind of got that like dusty trail kind of uniqueness to it. And then our players are going to also have to choose jobs within the settlement, because that's going to be part of their backstory, is that they're not only mercenaries, but they also work within the community that they're either hiding in or were born in. So, and yes, exactly, P-Jack. It's definitely going to have that Fallen Order / Jedi Survivor kind of vibe to it, 100%.
Yeah, that'd be exciting. Oh my goodness, when you said the Western stuff, it made me think of what's the character from? It was I think they had it was Cad Bane. No, that's what I think of when I think of Western in Star Wars.
Oh, you're thinking the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, that's what I remember. It was like that was a fun one. But yeah, there'll be some interesting characters. And you said, I think you tell me like outside the stream that it's mostly a human and is it Bothan race makeup?
Yep, the planet that we chose is a lore planet, so it does exist on the galaxy map. It was founded by Bothans first, but then humans helped colonize it. It is a heavily salted world. So unlike Tatooine, it might look like a desert world, but their sandstorms you're getting pelted with salt, literally, when they have a sandstorm. It is brutal, it's harsh. A lot of machinery and stuff tend to fail. It's very much going to feel like a colonial backwatered planet for sure. I love that.
Watch your sodium levels, guys. It's gonna be a dangerous ride for sure, but it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing tomorrow what characters everyone comes up with. I know that I know myself, I know Tony, we both have some concepts we're toying around with, but I want to kind of get an idea of what everyone else is doing before I solidify my option.
It's it was it's depicted in lore that it is a very high alkaline kind of world. So it is pretty salty. I don't know if it's as salty as Crate. I don't even know what that is, but I'd have to look that one up. You got me there. But yeah, it's salty for sure.
Yeah. And I think yeah, we got a couple of interesting characters already thought up, so potentially could be a lot of fun. Could be a lot of fun. We might have a bouncing bunny-like character. We could have, some cat-like characters. We could have some humans. We could have, who knows, might have a droid, may have a performer. Like, there's lots of interesting little tidbits of characters we're gonna have. We might have another. We tend to have a motley crew of people, so I think we're gonna have another motley crew of people.
Yeah, humans tend to be rare in our groups.
Which is nice. Which is nice. That doesn't seem to, and when I play games, I usually pick a human character. So it's nice to try something out now that's not a human, because I'm trying to think. Like, I haven't, I haven't really played a human character in any of our sessions.
Nope. I think you played
Nope.
what you play? You played a angel type character in their first one. I forgot
Yeah.
what the race was.
Yeah, ASMR. I played an ASMR in one of our sessions, which that one we didn't stream. And then I had obviously Cecile, which was a Faline, and then I had Holly, who was a Chiss, and then obviously Thistle, who is a halfling, and then in Mass Effect I had Taylor. Good old Taylor, who was definitely not a human.
Well, I'm 100% looking forward to this. We do stream that tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which would be 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. You want to play a Tordarian there, Cersei?
I don't honestly even know what that is. Show it on the screen so I can see.
When Annie was found on Tatooine, that little flying guy with the little wings?
Oh, the one who like it was the slave owner, basically.
The nicer one, but yeah, he wasn't like mean
Oh,
to Annie.
oh gosh, no, thank you. I don't play that type of character.
They're actually they're more like hungry for money. But yeah, that character specifically had Annie as a slave. Yeah.
I mean, I might play a character that's hungry for money, but it probably won't be that race.
So what I'm going to do here to wrap us up is I'm going to actually show our opening video for our session tomorrow. So right before we go to live on stream, we'll actually have a video set up to kind of set up the scene for viewers, and then we'll go right into our pen and paper. So we're going to go a little silent here while the video plays, but please enjoy. If you comment in chat, we'll certainly respond to you there. Is there anything else you'd like to say before I do that, Cersei?
Nope. Hope you enjoy the video, and we look forward to our session 0 tomorrow.
Ash falls down on shattered streets, cold iron boots march over dreams. How do we stand? How do we fight when all the stars are drowning in night?
A long time ago in a galaxy ruled by fear, the Republic is dead. 10 years have passed since the rise of the Galactic Empire. The Jedi Order has been shattered, its temples burned, its teachings erased, its survivors hunted relentlessly across the stars by the Inquisitors, dark agents who serve the will of Darth Vader himself.
Somewhere far beyond the fear, our players gather quietly here, one step closer. It's Sunday night, we roll the dice. Through fire and loss, we choose to fight.
Across the galaxy, entire worlds now kneel beneath Imperial rule. The clone armies of old have vanished, replaced by faceless stormtroopers and the endless shadow of star destroyers hanging over hyperspace lanes. Freedom has become a memory. Voices that speak too loudly disappear. Worlds that resist are crushed. Hope itself feels dangerous. But even in darkness, whisper begins to spread. A movement, a spark, a shadow gathering strength somewhere beyond the Empire's reach. Some call it treason, some call it foolish, but others call it rebellion.
Though empires rise and hope grows thin, we hold the light against the end. Time stands still, the force grows weak, worlds fall apart. The hunted flee still somewhere hidden from the storm. Broken souls begin reborn, one step closer. It's Sunday night, our players stand across the stars against command.
Each of our players will have something to lose, and each about to become part of something far larger than themselves. Because while the Empire tightens its grip across the galaxy, the first sparks of rebellion are about to ignite.
Though shadows fall and darkness roars, we carry hope through ruined worlds, and all along we believe the light survived. Fate has brought our paths alive. We have walked through endless nights to keep the spark alive. One step closer, one step closer. It's Sunday night, we roll the dice. Through fear and flame we choose to fight, and side by side through endless night our players rise to bring the light.
Well, that was our opening video to our pen and paper. So once the timer gets close enough to us launching live, that will play, and then we'll go right into our session 0. Our session 0 is unique because we're not going to go into gameplay right away. We're actually going to go step by step, building characters, which if you saw the link earlier, you can actually go to the website and you can see kind of what the steps that we're going to be taking. You can just go into like the player handbook, see the step-by-step characters, and it'll tell you basically what we're going to be going through. But to make it easier for our players, we're actually going to our tools. We're going to be creating our characters through the website, which makes it fully automated, and then import them into Foundry, where we're going to have to do just a few more extra things there, but I'll help everyone with that as well. Some disclaimers though: some races and species probably will not be allowed into our system just because of accessibility to the other party members. So obviously if like someone plays a hut, if they're knocked down, that could really impact the party itself on how they can help that individual or even get them out of a situation. So that could be awkward. And then there's other species. There's an arachnid species that's got like 8 legs or something like that with 2 arms. We're going to be trying to avoid some of those kind of species just because it might make the party makeup a little difficult. but a lot of the races will be accessible, and we'll discuss which races are. So as players choose a race, we'll go over whether or not those are accessible or not. We're not restricting any of the classes, just specific species, because we need to make sure they at least work within the party makeup. So obviously, like, a Wookiee would be perfectly fine, but a Wookiee Jedi, probably not as much, just because there's only one Wookiee Jedi every 1,000 years. They don't have a very high force sensitivity percentage amongst their species, so that would make sense, for example, especially since there was a Wookiee Jedi not too long ago. So we'll probably avoid things like that. Plus, I also think there might be one in this time period still. I'd have to look at that, but either way, those are the certain circumstances that we'll certainly talk about. It will be open for discussion. A lot of the species are accessible. It's just certain ones. I think that's really the only big restriction I have. I already created them a starship, so they get to name their starship. They'll get to name their mercenary group. They'll also look at a map that will be displayed on screen on what jobs they want to take within the outpost. And then they'll also have to determine, this is what I love about this system, they'll have to determine their deployment too on their mercenary ship, because everyone can choose a deployment. They'll all start at rank 0, so they don't have to worry about special dice that are involved in the character sheet right away. They just get to play with the deployment that they chose, see how it feels. And as they rank up, they'll actually get more access to certain abilities and things like that. So if I clicked on coordinator, for example, you'll see like the power die here. This is what they don't have to worry about at rank 0, which I think is great. It gives them a soft introduction to the class. So all they have to worry about as a coordinator is like, okay, what's my venture and what is coordinating leadership? That's all they'll have to worry about. It's great. And plus, their ship won't have guns. Their ship won't have shields to start with. The ship itself is going to be a group project. Ships actually rank up by tier as they develop the ship, and I want that to be their long-term project, is to make their ship their home, personalize it the way they want. So I think that'll be really fun for them to also explore as they're traveling the galaxy. They will start with a hyperspace drive class 15, which is quite slow, but as they again develop their ship, they can increase their hyperdrive too. So it'll be a really cool experience. I've been really hitting the rules on the spaceship battles because it's a lot different than D&D 5th edition. They don't have unique sea battle type rules necessarily as in depth as like Star Wars starship rules. So that'll be that's where I've really been focusing on for the last week, is just understanding those rules, because the rest of the rules kind of fall in line with the traditional 5th edition rule set that everyone's pretty much accustomed to. And if you're not, that's okay, because you don't need to be. But yeah, this is gonna be exciting. I don't have much more to say. I do appreciate you, P-Jack, for joining us. Cersei, is there anything that you wanted to add before we close the stream today?
Nope. Excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm always excited when we get to build things out, flesh character design. And it'll be the first time we're streaming as Session Zeros, so I will put a disclaimer that none of us know the rules inside and out. And when we do a pen and paper system, we always make sure to start off with that disclaimer, because there are things that we might do that are like, don't make sense to the rules because maybe we don't understand them entirely, but we always make sure after the stream to examine the rules that we had questions so we don't do that again. We usually kind of play it by the seat. We kind of make sure that we're adjustable in the situation so we can continue playing and having fun. That's what pen and paper is about. And then we'll always examine the rule afterwards so we don't do that again. So I just throw the disclaimer out there. None of us know the rules 100%. I don't think anybody can. I don't think that's expected of the players. It's not expected of our DM. So we're certainly going to learn together. There's going to be hurdles. We don't like to get stuck on the rule mongering in the middle of a session. So just saying that out loud now before anything else is said otherwise. Great. Well, thank you, Cersei, for joining me today. And I'm happy to that you get to see some Star Wars, P-Jack. So that'll be great. I'll be taking you back home to soak in. And thank you for their other viewers. I believe Tony's amongst the audience. So I appreciate you guys as well. I saw Raps too.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day, and I guess may the force be with you.